Well, folks, welcome. We're going to get started here. It's really a great pleasure for me to welcome Dr. Gautama Vajracharya, who is a Emeritus lecturer here in our department. And he has been teaching Nepali for many years in Madison, but more importantly, he's been teaching art history of South Asia. And we just wish we would have enough funds to keep hiring him and keep him on here, but he retired, so he can work on some other interesting things. Dr. Gautama Vajracharya has a PhD from the South Asian Language and Literature program here. He has his MA in Art History from Claremont College, and he's worked at the UCLA Department of Art Museum with Prathapaditya Pal in the past. So he has a very long history of association with art history. And he has written numerous books and monographs, most recently, or forthcoming, Iconography of the Monsoon, Discerning the Core Significance of Indian Art, and other aspects of art in Buddhism. And he has a number of books or articles on iconography and images, hunting pictures from Nepal, creatures of the rain. His important studies on the Ashokan pillar is also very critical for understanding the iconography and the sculptures and the traditions of South Asia. So today he's going to be talking about unicorns, and I'm not sure if I had anything to do with this, but I've been talking to him about unicorns for a long time and trying to find out information about unicorns, and all of a sudden he says, I'm going to write an article on unicorns, and he sends it to me. So I'm looking forward to hearing about his study of unicorns. He's talking about unicorns in ancient India and their utilization of their horns for making Vedic ritual implements. So please welcome Dr. Gautama Vajracharya.
My lecture is about an observation of a Sanskritist of Indian work of art. I am not an archaeologist. I even have not seen any excavation. Actually, I am learning something about it, taking classes from Mark and R. I became interested in unicorn, all these things, since 1998. There was an interesting exhibition here organized by Mark and R, and it was in the museum, and I was teaching downstairs, and the exhibition is upstairs, and I studied those images every single day. And so I began to take interest in seeing in the seal beginning from that point. I made an image putting two horns of a unicorn. One horn is here, the other horn is here. Right? With this image, I began to think that Vedic people might have used such horn for grabbing the cooking pot. Okay. Before I start my lecture, I would like to show you what I'm thinking about it. This is the pot that I received from Professor Kenner, and consider that this is the two horns of the unicorn, right? They could not use wooden implement because this pot was really hot. It's a Prabharga ritual. This pot itself stands for solar light, and solar disk, as a matter of fact. Prabharga ritual, they build a fire and they cook milk and the ghee in this pot. And they made as hot as possible because it stands for solar disk. And so then they need to pour milk and the ghee from the fire, lifting from the fire. They might have tried with using wooden stick, but wooden stick get burned easily when the pot is so hot. As a matter of fact, in earlier time, in the Rig Veda, for this Prabharga ritual, they made this pot out of metal pot. But they experience that when there is extreme hot, that metal get melted. And it is recorded in Sarvabhauma Brahman. No, we cannot use metal pot because it get melted. Right? And then beginning from Yajurveda time, they begin to use earthen pot. And then there was a debate how to make pair of tongue, how to make what material will be good for making pair of tongue. And they concluded that parῑśāsa, this is a Sanskrit word, parῑśāsa. What is parῑśāsa is the main point of my lecture. Parῑśāsa, using two parῑśāsa is good because it doesn't get burned that easily. So they use two parῑśāsa. I believe parῑśāsa is the unicorn horn. Oh, I did some practice at home, but not much success. See? This is the main topic of my lecture. So, if I am correct, this unicorn bull that we see in Indus Valley seal so often, Professor Kennar told me that more than 60% of the seal represent unicorn. If I am correct, that the unicorn, the Sanskrit name of unicorn is ṛśya. You may like to see that his body is pretty close to a bull, not a horse, not a stallion. The neck may be closer to, a little bit closer to a horse, but his body is close to a bull. In Rig Veda, this type of animal is classified as gavaya. Gavaya doesn't mean a cow-like animal. So, in a sense, ṛśya is a cow-like animal. But before I go to my finding, I found a reference to ṛśya, very interesting reference to ṛśya in Vedic literature, and then I called Professor Kennar. Oh, I found the reference to the unicorn. And that time he was about to leave for China for South Asian conference. But he said, I'm busy, but if you want to talk with me, 5 minutes, come. So I ran to his office and I showed him my research, and then he said, I need to think about it, I'm leaving for China. And then he told me that, no, Gautam, the unicorn is mythical because no bone has been found. And I highly respect that view, but I'm simply representing a possibility. This is the way my research began. I had no intention to find unicorn in Vedic literature. I was working on Nandipada. Nandipada you will see here. This is a Karshapana coin, half Karshapana, 2nd century BC. In 2nd century BC coin and also in Panchmark coin, quite often you see Nandipada represented. And this is the very good representation. Nandipada, you will see one Nandipada here, another Nandipada is here. And swastika also is shown, a tree and Indra Dvaja, all these things are shown here. And this is the detail of same Nandipada depicted in Karshapan coin. And you may like to see that some similarity between this Nandipada and this implement. And you do see such Nandipada in early Panchmark coin. This is Primorian. We don't know exactly what is the date, but this is Primorian Panchmark coin. In there, we do see the Nandipada. Nandipada has many synonyms. And this is why it is interesting. This is why I became more and more interested working on Nandipada. What I'm trying to say that I started my research working on Nandipada, and then I became interested in unicorn. These are the Sanskrit words. You will be learning about 15 Sanskrit words from me, okay? These are the Sanskrit words for Nandipada. One word is Gospada, which simply means footprint or leg of a bull. Gos means a cow. Go, it's a cognitive cow. And pada, footprint or a leg. Prashtapada is another word. Prashta is also cow. Not very popular word. Prashta is not that popular word, but Parinini Ashtadhyayi clearly says Prashto go. And then recently, only yesterday, I found that in a Sanskrit dictionary called Vachaspatya, Prashta is called Gavar. Not exactly cow, but cow, bull-like animal is Prashtapada. So Prashtapada simply means the footprint of a Prashta, and Nandipada are synonym. Nandipada, Prashtapada, and Gospada is synonym. Nandyabharta, the final word, Nandyabharta, is not exactly synonym, but it is also associated with Nandi. Nandi is a bull. Nandyabharta, how to translate in English, I don't know. Repetition of Nandi. Coming back of Nandi. All these words closely related to Indian culture, related to estivation and monsoon. I believe the original Indian civilization derived from two things, estivation and monsoon. Estivation is a strange word. It is just opposition of hibernation. India doesn't hibernate. No animal hibernate in India, but animals estivate. Rabbit is called shasha in Sanskrit because shasha means one who sleeps. Rabbit, when summer comes, disappears. Frogs, when summer comes, summer heat, frogs disappear. Peacock disappear. Many animals estivate to escape from the summer heat. Right? Just opposite of Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, frog hibernate. When winter comes, frog disappear. And then when springs come, frogs start croaking. But in India, when summer comes, frog disappear. And then when monsoon comes, frogs start croaking. Right? The Gospada, Prashtapada, Nandipada, all these words also associated with estivation, summer estivation and monsoon. There is a text called Suparnadhyaya, clearly says that, there is interesting story, I better tell you the story. This is a story of the Valakhilya. They are so small that one time they are drowned in the water of a cow's footprint. That is Gospada. They were drowned in Gospada, which is the water collected in the footprint. And then Indra saw them, Indra laugh at them. These Valakhilya, these great rishis were very, very powerful. They were angry and then created Garuda, the sun god, sun bird, Garuda. Sun bird, Garuda, was so powerful that he made not only that water in the footprint disappear, but entire ocean water is disappear. Okay, that is the story given in Suparnadhyaya. And then in Parinini, there is a Sanskrit expression, Gospada Pram Brishto Deva, Gospada Puram. There are two different ways to say it. Gospada Puram Brishto Deva, Gospada Pram Brishto Deva. That simply means it rained so much that the cow's footprint was full of water. It is about 3 inches of water or 4 inches of water. Right? What happened in India? There is a mud, and then all of a sudden summer comes, that footprint of the cow remains dry. And then when monsoon comes, it gets full of water. And then people know that the monsoon is here, the time for planting. And therefore this expression, Gospada Puram Brishto Deva or Gospada Pram Brishto Deva became a very popular expression. And this is the reason that Gospada or Prashtapada, Nandipada is so auspicious. It is related to water. Everything closely related to water and monsoon rain is auspicious to India. And same way, remotely, closely related to drought is inauspicious. And then when I began to work on Nandipada, I began to realize that Nandipada symbol remotely echoes this scene that we often see in this valley scene. You might have noticed that here this yogi is seated on a peculiar bench with bull's leg. That bull's leg, Sanskrit name for the bull's leg is Prashtapada. Nobody, so far I know, I have not read much, but so far I know, nobody noticed that the Sanskrit word for this kind of bench is Prashtapada. And the abbreviation of Prashtapada is Prashta. This was very significant, although very simple. From Vedic literature, we know for sure that this was very significant bench. This is a royal bench. This is not elaborate throne. This is simple wooden throne. When a king is coronated in India, people pour water. Coronation, pouring water on the head of the king is main part of royal coronation. So it is actually a bathing ceremony of a king. When a king is taking bath, he's not going to use elaborate throne, right? Throne like this is made of cotton, made of precious cloth, will ruin. So the king took bath seated on Prashtapada, which is also called Prashta. And it has another name called Asandi. 3 names for that tiny seat. Prashta, which is the abbreviation of Prashtapada, and it is also called Asandi. And I can give you multiple references to this word used synonymously. Most interesting thing is the place between Saraswati River and the Yamuna River. The Vedic people made their capital, and it was located close to the Himalaya between Saraswati River and the Yamuna River. And their capital was known as Asandivat, which simply means the capital is English word. But Sanskrit equivalent for capital is a city which had Asandi, which had throne, which had the bench on which the king sat down and received the bath. Symbolically important, not because it is beautiful, but symbolically important. And I know for sure that Asandi Prashta also was designed like just like this wooden bench that we see in this valley. My evidence, they are from here. This is often called in Western literature at the square of Pegasus, 4 stars. And 4 stars, this is called sometimes square of Pegasus. Any of you know about this? Yeah. What is the real name? Any of you know? I have difficulty pronouncing the Greek word. There is a Greek word for this particular star. But, yeah? The Sanskrit word for this is Prashtapada. Prashtapada. Because they saw beings with the leg of a bull in this constellation. This is a constellation, but it is called Prashtapada. Why it is called Prashtapada? Prashtapada simply means a bench which has bull's leg. So I made a conjectural image. This is Prashtapada, and this is my Prashtapada. They might have seen Prashtapada in this manner. This is a bull's leg, right? Just like in this valley seal. Okay, this is why I become more and more interested in Nandipada. Right? This is Prashtapada constellation, Prashtapada Sanskrit constellation, and it was called Prashtapada because Prashta means a bull, Gavaya, Pada means a feet. This continued in later period too, and then it became merged with the image of Gospada, because Nandipada and Gospada is synonym in Sanskrit. And then when they made Nandipada symbol, did you see the Nandipada symbol also has cow's leg? Right? So I became more and more interested in Nandipada. My research in Nandipada is not over yet. I am still working on it. I have already written earlier part of Nandipada, and it has been accepted. Before I finish it, it has been accepted for publication in Vedic Studies, a journal run by Michael Vigil. And Nandipada, variation of Nandipada began to appear in second century BC. Nandipada goes back to Vedic period, very likely even earlier time, but variation of Nandipada began to appear in second century BC, bhavan sculpture. And sometime in Mathura, also in Amaravati, we see Buddha Shakyamuni or Jaina divinity placed on Nandipada, as if Nandipada is a throne. Nandipada is a symbol, but in Nandipada is quite often depicted, not quite often, occasionally depicted as if it is a seed. And then working on Nandipada, I began to know that actually from a dictionary called Vajracharya. It is published many years ago. This very interesting dictionary, Taranath Tarka Vajraspati's dictionary. He is a 19th century Sanskritist. He has made a dictionary, not exactly dictionary, not in alphabetical order. Alphabetical order is unknown to Sanskritists, called Vajraspatya. But he talked about Gavaya, he talked about Nandipada. He must be, just like me, he must have been one time very fascinated with Nandipada. And I'm still working on it. And from his book, I began to learn that Nandipada is also called śaphau and also parῑśāsau. Śaphau, I understand why Nandipada is called śaphau. I understand it. Because Nandipada is cow's footprint. Śaphau is a hoof. Right? Śaphau means two hoofs. Cows has two hoofs, and therefore cow is called śaphau, which has 8 hoofs. Cow has 8 hoofs, but a stallion, a horse, has only 4 hoofs. Right? Not bifurcated. The stallion hoof is not bifurcated, but the hoof of the cow is bifurcated, and therefore it was called śaphau. Śaphau is dvivachanam, dual. Any of you taking Sanskrit? No? Okay, good. So the main problem is this: Sanskritists and traditional Sanskritists are not interested in art, not interested in archaeology either. And many archaeologists, many artists learn Sanskrit. They know Sanskrit, but Sanskritists never took interest. Sanskrit, there are so many Sanskrit universities. So far I know, nowhere artistry is taught in that university. Archaeology is not taught. thought either. And that is a huge problem. So, śaphau, I understand why it is called śaphau, but parῑśāsau was the problem. What is parῑśāsau? Why Nandipada is called parῑśāsau? Okay? And then I did find parῑśāsau in the description of this ritual called pravarga ritual. Pravarga ritual, I'm interested in frogs. I have been working for many years. Because frogs start croaking in monsoon time, but frogs start croaking here in spring. That makes a huge difference, right? Pravarga ritual is performed exactly when frogs start croaking. And this is the time they build huge fire and use this kind of earthen pot to boil their milk and the ghee. Right? And the question is, why they have to imitate sun at the beginning of monsoon? It is already hot in India. They don't need to make solar ritual, right? But actually what happened, this pravarga ritual begin in other side of Hindus, in Iraq and in Afghanistan and Iran. Winter time, they were not sure if sun can sustain, sun can survive. So in order to make solar system, in order to make sun god powerful, they perform this ritual during the time called Anamaka. This is interesting word. It is Sanskrit word, but also Iranian old Persian name, Anamaka. Or Namaka. Some of you already know what Anamaka means. Anamaka, also Anamika. And you have to know?
That's a finger.
Huh?
Anamika is a finger.
Anamika is from there. Anamaka literally means nameless.
Yeah.
The 2 months of the winter in Iran and also in Afghanistan, 2 months of winter is Anamika, nameless. They count it for 10 months, and when the winter comes, time is dead. And those 2 months are Anamaka, and this is the time pravarga was celebrated, pravarga was performed in Iran and Afghanistan. But in India, Anamaka, not in winter time, Anamaka, when the monsoon comes, time is dead. Monsoon time, they got the Anamaka. So they inherited that Anamaka tradition into India and converted in according to Indian climate. And this is why pravarga ritual was performed when frogs start croaking. So karma is the word for this vessel, and also the milk and the ghee cooked in this pot. And in this ritual, this is the ritual where they refer to parῑśāsau. You need to take that burning hot pot with the implement called parῑśāsau. The name of the implement is parῑśāsau. It is dual, just like scissors, scissor and scissors. Singular is scissor and dual is scissors, because there are 2 scissors in there. Right? Same way, parῑśāsa is singular, parῑśāsau is dual. So using dual to parῑśāsa, they lifted the pot. But here I find the parῑśāsau is also called śaphau. Parῑśāsau and śaphau is used in Sattvaṭa Brahmana. I got all this pravarga ritual from Sattvaṭa Brahmana. And here, the parῑśāsau and the śaphau are used synonymously. So I became more and more interested on it. And then, all of a sudden, in Atharvaveda, I found this stanza, ṛśyaśṛńga parīṣāṣam parikritya paritvaca krityam kritya krite deva niskamya pratimunchata. But here, dual is not used. Here parῑśāsam, singular is used. And Bloomfield translated this Sanskrit hymn in this form: cutting out of the skin of the enemy, as if from the skin of an antelope, do ye, O gods, fasten the spell upon him that prepares it as one fasten. And very difficult to understand English. He thinks parῑśāsa is skin. Parῑśāsa is a skin. So my problem is, if parῑśāsa is skin, how can you make implement pair of tongue out of skin? Right? From this Atharvaveda hymn, we know for sure that parῑśāsa is something closely related to ṛśya's physique, closely related to the body of a ṛśya. This is my main point. And when this saw this statement in Atharvaveda, this is the time I called Professor Makinar. Oh, I found it. So my translation is this: O gods, chop up the spell like the single horn parῑśāsam of the ṛśya around his skin, and fasten the spell upon him who prepares it as one fasten and ornament. Parῑśāsa has to be horn, because Vedic people made an implement called parῑśāsau out of that element. Something protruding from the body of a ṛśya. And that is ekavachana, singular. A single object protruding from the body of ṛśya, which can be used as implement. What that could be. Something protrude from the body of an animal is ears, but out of earlobe you cannot make the pair of tongue, right? Yes, a tail also protrudes from the body, something that you can cut off just above the skin, but out of tail you cannot make that implement either. So it has to be horn. It has to be the horn of the ṛśya. And then here, the horn is used as single, like parῑśāsau. So I personally believe that they got two parῑśāsa from two different ṛśya. And they could make this kind of instrument out of the horn of the water buffalo or the cows. But the horn of the cow and the water buffalo not good, because it has just one arch. This has S curve. This ṛśya's horn has S curve. And actually in Buddhist texts, clearly describe that ṛśya has Mahābhārata horn. ṛśya has a horn that meander like river. Right? And they chose ṛśya's horn because it has double curve. That's what I mean. But the horn of the water buffalo has just one corner, no way you can hold it. Right? And then you need to lift the whole part from fire. And then I began to study about ṛśya. I understood from Atharvaveda that ṛśya is an animal who could provide the horn to make the implement. And then when I studied ṛśya in later literature like Ramayana and Mahābhārata, I began to understand that ṛśya is a unicorn. It is clearly described in Mahābhārata. Do you know the story of Ṛśyaśṛńga? Ṛśyaśṛńga is the name of a sage. According to Ramayana and Mahābhārata, he was a son of a great sage, Vibhandaka. But Vibhandaka resided in the middle of the jungle. alone. And because of that, he was very much isolated. The long story. And one time, Vivandaka was taking bath in the river, and then in same water, Apsaras, the beautiful nymphs, also bathing. Okay, and because of that, the Apsaras are so pretty that Vivandaka ejaculated semen, and an animal who was drinking water happened to consume that semen, and then that animal, that female animal, conceived a child, and the child was born with a horn of a ṛśya. The female animal who consumed the rishi's semen happened to be female ṛśya. She did not have horn, but her child was a male child. As a male child, he inherited a horn, a single horn. ṛśyaśṛńga, I have quoted somewhere. ṛśyaśṛńga parῑśāsam it is in Mahābhārata. ṛśyaśṛńgam shirasi rajan asit Mahatmana tenāśyaśṛńga mityevam tarasa pratito bhavat. O Lord, a single horn of a ṛśya was on the head of the great being. For this reason, he became known as Ṛśyaśṛńga. The boy was known as Ṛśyaśṛńga because he has a horn of a ṛśya, who was a unicorn. Right? And then, this story also popular in Pali literature. In Pali literature, Ṛśyaśṛńga and Yekasṛńga is synonymously used. Sometimes that boy who had one horn is called Ṛśyaśṛńga, other time he was called Yekasṛńga, one who had just one horn. And this is very first time recorded in Chinese text called Shiyuki, which is 5th, 7th century text, and it became quite popular in China and Japan. Even these days in Japan, they play drama, and this Ṛśyaśṛńga or Yekasṛńga person is known to Japanese people as Ikkaku Senin, which simply means one horn says. Okay, so with this, I know for sure that ṛśya was unicorn. Right? The main problem, people could find out, the scholar who work on Mahābhārata, Ramayana, Atharvaveda, they could find out easily that ṛśya is a unicorn. They could find out, but they translated the Sanskrit word mriga, as antelope. Mriga, yes, in Hindi and in Gujarati and Nepali, mriga means an antelope. But in Sanskrit, mriga doesn't mean an antelope. Even a monkey is called mriga, śaphau mriga. Mriga simply means forest animal. And according to Michael Witzel, the word mriga is derived from old Persian language, in which mriga is called migir. And migir became mriga in Sanskrit. The Hindi word murgi, according to him, the Hindi word murgi, which is a chicken, right, is also derived from same migir. Up to this point is correct? Up to this point is okay? Difficult to speak in Greek. And so this is my idea. Parῑśāsa means single horn of unicorn, of ṛśya, and they made this implement out of that horn, placing two horns, okay? And this one known as parῑśāsau dual, because parῑśāsau is a single horn. Okay, clear? But it was also known as śaphau because śaphau and Nandipada is synonym. It looks like a Nandipada. Although it is a combination of two horns like this one, right? But this looks like a Nandipada symbol. Nandipada is cow's footprint. And this is why they call it śaphau. Śaphau is bifurcated hoof of a cow. Bifurcated hoof of gavaya in it. Bull or cow-like animal. Right? Did you notice that ṛśya or this unicorn also has pretty close to cow's leg? There is, I don't think I can go in detail about it. In Rig Veda, there is a word called ṛśyada. Ṛśyada simply means the giver of ṛśya. It is interpreted as a pit where the ṛśya was kept. But when I studied that the word ṛśyada carefully, it is not a pit. It is three-dimensional object. It is three-dimensional ṛśyada, the giver of the ṛśya. It is three-dimensional object. It is erected in the middle of the water. What is that? I don't know. But Rig Veda also tells us that ṛśya occasionally comes to drink water from our pana. Oh, this is the sentence. Oh Indra, visit us like the ṛśya who comes to drink water from our pana. Our pana, again, is translated by many scholars as a water tank or the small pond for feeding cows. But our pana is drinking water in a container, in a raised container. Abha is raised for cows and their animals. Vedic people made a place where they can provide water to cattle. Very likely made of wood, very likely made of stone. That is our pana. And according to Rig Veda, ṛśya quite often visit to drink water from our pana. Right? And so the question is, if this is our pana because water drop is stone? Right? I'm not going to that things today. I don't have much time, and my research is not over it either. So out of this using, what I did, I made a Xerox copy of this picture and simply cut the ṛśya's horn from this Mohenjo-daro HR 743, and I also cut the horn from Xerox copy from this Harappa S19, and then I made this implement, Vedic implement, which is called parῑśāsau, which is called śaphau, which is also Nandipada. Thank you.
We have time for questions. Yes.
I have two couple things who are not too late. Nandi is also Shiva's companion, so that's a bull. So Nandi and Vriga, right? So Nandi can also be referred to as Shiva's companion and or a bull. Okay, that's number one. Number two is there are a couple things here. I don't think, again, I may be wrong, that people had found the existence of a real unicorn. There was no fossil, there was nothing. I mean, if I separate the facts and the fictions, but those are facts. Those seals are facts. People have found them, but people have not found a unicorn. Is it possible that some cows and or bulls or whatever animal were born with a seal like that, and that's why they were unique? And Vedic people or people in like 6,000 years ago found they were unique and chopped off their, which is not a right action again, as an animal activist, but chopped off their horn and used them as parῑśāsau. Will that be something that you would take as satisfying the scientist and in the modern time and everything?
Let me answer your first question. First, Nandi's bull. Shiva's story began to appear only around 2nd century BC. But we are talking about 700 BC, 1500 BC. Recently, a scholar, Ṛśyaśṛńga, has written a very nice article that although these days we call Shiva's bull Nandi, but in Sanskrit text, Shiva's bull is never called Nandi, always Brisha and Brishava. But the word Nandi is more often used in Puranic literature for Shiva's Gana, Nandikeshwara, Nandi. Right? But the word Nandi is older than Shiva's story.
Okay.
The significance of a bull, Nandi, is older than Shiva's story. And this is why, that may be the reason that even now the Shiva's bull is called Nandi. The Nandi para symbol is much earlier than Shiva's story.
Thank you.
Right? Second question, it's an archaeological question. I do not have much to say about it. Yes, doesn't matter how strong my argument is. This argument may not mean much if we cannot find the bone, bone of a ṛśya, of a unicorn. Right? Particularly, only if you can find a horn of a bull, then we may be able to say something affirmatively. Right? However, the horn of the rhinoceros also not found yet. So far, I know. So that's what I learned from Professor Market.
I'll answer that question because I thought I found a unicorn.
Wow.
I was in a park in Pakistan. It's right in the desert area in Cholistan. And it was a very hot day. And I had drunk all my water. And my head was spinning. And I looked over and I saw an animal that had one horn coming from the back of its head, and I have a photograph. It was a chinkara deer that the young males fight all the time. And they break their horns. And sometimes they are twisted and broken, and one horn will be sticking like that. So it's not uncommon for them to break one horn off, and they will often have one horn. So if people did see that one-horned animal, then this could be the kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
So there are examples of a broken horn, that just one horn, and it's very similar to this.
Oh, okay.
And it's twisted, and it's like that. So
Thank you. That's another good thing.
we had another question here, and then one in the back. So.
Well, she took my question. I want to know what the ontological stand or position is of these unicorns. Do they exist? So you guys were talking about that.
We don't have any examples of physical unicorns, but my feeling is that they're mythical, but they could come from somebody seeing something like that.
Yeah, sure.
In the back.
Especially when it's hot day and you have drunk
No water.
whoever knows.
To speak to see
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have studied some art history and sculpture, South Indian sculpture, and what is significant in the Shaivite iconography is that one of his weapons, or one of those shastras that are those signs of Shiva in South Indian iconography. One is Mrga, and that is on his back or posterior left hand. There is Mrga very often. and that is depicted in the iconography as a unicorn. Have you noticed it? And it is in iconographical texts, many Agamic texts, you find that sign. And also not only there, you find it in Chola bronzes, for example.
Yeah, Chola bronzes are 11th century, 10th, 11th century, right?
But also earlier.
Earliest unicorn that I found, that I see in Bharut and the Sanchi Stupa. Sanchi Stupa has a panel showing all creatures. In there, that ṛśya also shown, but in this case, the ṛśya in here, ṛśya has just one horn, but ṛśya's horn, the horn turned into vine, meandering vine. That's the way.
This is like, Shiva has his posterior hand like this.
Right.
And
It's
there is a
holds.
small miniature Buddha
Uh-huh.
with a single horn.
I have seen, as a matter of fact, or Chejeng Museum has a sculpture of that Chola period bronzes holding mriga like this, right? And then in there, the horn is not that clear, but if you like to visualize the unicorn, you can do it in there too.
Thank you. Okay,
So-
other questions? Well, I would like to make a comment. I think, I've read his paper that he gave me, and I was waiting for this talk to get a bit more background, because reading a paper and hearing it come from his mouth are very different things. And I'm very convinced to now look at this in much more detail. And I want to thank you for enlightening us on this complex topic, because not very many people know Sanskrit enough to look at it critically and also have the creative eye that an art historian has. So I really want to thank Dr. Vajracharya for this presentation.
Thank you.